Welcome back, everybody, to Battle of the Ballads, 1995 edition. We continue our journey, time traveling through music. I am joined tonight by Greg, one half of the Brothers Wilcox, and Tony, who is sitting in for good Joseph tonight as he travels the world.
Huge shoes to fill.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Tony. Greg, as always, I want you to take a moment to just look at this amazing hat on Sir Gregory's head and marvel in just the beauty of it.
$4 at Target like a decade ago.
It's stellar, I must be honest. Now, gentlemen, I don't know if you had a chance to see the many comments we had this week from folks who really wanted to chime in about 1995. But they would lead you to believe that this is Alanis's year. And I'm not going to speculate on that yet. I will just go through the comments that we were given. Many interesting ones. And I love that folks are playing along with this. Please continue. Please keep it up, because to be honest, there's some tracks that I forget about. There's some tracks that it's interesting. We have the constant debate about what year were they released as opposed to what year, they were a single. And so it keeps some songs alive longer than they would have been based on what we're doing. So that is pretty fun. What's that?
Oh, and it's just active participation. You guys are getting a lot of support. It's awesome to see just droves of people chiming in. So this is starting to catch fire year after year, and it's just getting better. And I love the Spotify playlist. I mean, I rocked out to that last week for several days. Great idea. Let's keep that going.
Now, that does remind me, because Greg started the playlist before we started here. Every single song that was mentioned, either by us or by folks on the thread, which I have saved on the computer here, will be on this playlist for 1995. You'll be able to listen to it. Greg and Joe came up with this awesome concept of doing that, and we're going to rock out through the years. And it's just so cool. So here are some of the songs you're going to find on it. And this is just from the folks at home. Sherry Nutter Timothy gave us Cumbersome by 7 Mary 3. In my opinion, that whole American Standard album is amazing. Don't Speak by No Doubt, Ironic, Alanis Morissette, Wonderwall by Oasis. Jeff Warden gave us Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis, which is a deeper track on there. And he shared a live version of it, and it was absolutely excellent. Did you guys get a chance to listen to it?
I did. It's one of those songs I forget, and probably because I was in 5th grade when this album came out, and Wonderwall and Champagne Supernova were both in heavy rotation on MTV at the same time. And when I'd get ready for school in the mornings, it was Sailor Moon on WB and MTV. So I would hear those two Oasis tracks basically every morning, because they'd play them 15 minutes apart.
Right.
So it was that, and we will definitely get into it, the Smashing Pumpkins tracks of that year too.
Absolutely.
So it was that was what I got ready for school every morning, because I don't know, I've noticed this with radio stations too, but they would play the same artist at roughly the same time every morning. And it's probably just easier to program when you're doing that.
Well, it's also easy for me at home to program when to press record with my cassette tape in my boombox, so I can make myself a sweet mixtape while waiting for the bus. The good old days. JJ James gave us Crossroads from Bone Thugs. Adrian Costello Solik gave us You Oughta Know Alanis. Dan Brockway came through with Fantasy by Mariah. Dan Robillard gave us Strong Enough, Sheryl Crow, Only Want to Be With You, Hootie, and I'm the Only One, Melissa Etheridge. Interestingly enough, I've seen all three in concert. I just thought that was kind of funny. My guy Cliff Barrios gave us Ice Cream by Wu-Tang. Our longtime listener Ellen Sadler gave us quite the list. We got Foolish Games by Jewel. You Ought to Know Alanis Morissette. I'll Be There For You, The Rembrandts. Not a favorite, but given friends, she thought it was culturally significant. Roll to Me Delamitri, Just a Girl No Doubt, This Is How We Do It, Montel Jordan. Give Me One Reason, Tracy Chapman. Only Want to Be With You, Hootie. Waterfalls, TLC, and Colors of the Wind by Vanessa Williams. Very eclectic list there.
Invite her on the show next week.
What's that?
Invite her on the show next week.
Ellen's joining us for 2000, right?
Yes, she is. Or 2004, one of them. She corrected me. I was wrong when I spoke last time. So it's
okay.
It's either 2000 or 2004, but I'm old and have a fickle memory. Jessica Sniateki gave us You Oughta Know, Gangsta's Paradise, and Just a Girl. Hall Brenner gave us Alanis Morissette and raved about Jagged Little Pill, which, yes, it was a masterpiece. Carter Jackson gave us Only Want to Be With You, Hootie. Kevin Davis gave us I Got 5 on It by Lunas, one of my favorite tracks. Kim Myers gave us Who Will Save Your Soul by Jewel. Aaron Kidd gave us DMB, What Would You Say, or Ants Marching. Alanis, You Oughta Know, Better Than Ezra Good, Bush, Everything Zen, Rusted Roots, Send Me On My Way, Blues Traveler, All Things Hootie, Oasis, and TLC, and Cotton Eye Joe's honorable mention. Kelly Susie gave us Boombastic by Shaggy, No More I Love Yous by Annie Lennox, All Mixed Up by 311, That Ain't My Truck by Rhett Atkins, Hate You, All I Want Is More, I Want Your Girlfriend to Be My Girlfriend Too by Real Big Fish. And that rounds out the folks at home. So
Kelly covered like every musical genre at her picks. So
she did.
It was all over the place.
It was quite eclectic, and it made me chuckle because I'm like, wow, at one point, like all these tracks would have been on a playlist for me, and they all kind of work within the same playlist too. So I'm excited to put this playlist together that Greg's starting there. We're going to add it. It's going to be available for all of you to listen to. And after the three of us and Phantom Joe go through all of these tracks that we have for 95, I'm curious to see just how eclectic this playlist gets. Since we usually start with Joe, and he's not here to speak for himself, Greg, do you want to start with Joe's tracks?
Yeah. And as I told you in our group things, he wanted to throw a couple antidotes and take a couple minutes to start next one. So I'm going to make up some for him. These are not mine. They're fake Joe's antidotes about some of these songs. But 1979 and Tonight Tonight, Smashing Pumpkins, that Tonight Tonight video is just amazing.
Yes.
You Ought to Know, Hand in My Pocket, Atlantis, Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under, Shania Twain. Let's see, 95, Joe would have been really young at that point. I was 10, so Joe would have been 6. And that whole Shania CD was a regular play. We had a boombox in our kitchen, and that CD, like beginning to end, basically every night for a while when we were kids. So that's got a special spot in the Dilcox siblings' hearts. Big Me, Foo Fighters, and Joe's a huge Foo Fighters fan, and if he were here, kind of funny that the year that we get the first Foo Fighters albums, the week he can't be with us, but Big Me was the song he picked. I kind of shocked he didn't pick more than one off that, but I know he tries to keep just one an album. The World I Know, Collective Soul, Brain Stew, Green Day, but really what he said was the whole Green Day album, because we know he just loves to Breakfast at Tiffany's, Deep Blue Something, Champagne Supernova, Oasis, and there's another one where you know he had to pick between the two because he tries to keep it to one. Counting Blue Cars, Dishwalla, which is always a song that I forget until I hear it, and I'm like, what a fucking great track.
Such an amazing track.
Yeah.
Cumbersome, 7 Mary 3, as we said. Just a Girl, Excuse Me, Mister, and Spider Ups for No Doubt were his No Doubt tracks off the Tragic Kingdom. And I mean, I think there's only like 2 tracks off that album that I wouldn't consider for this year, but it's such a great album. And I always think of it as their debut. I know it wasn't. It's like their 3rd album or something like that.
Yeah.
This just happened
to be the album after her and Tony Cannell broke up, coincidentally, where they finally made it.
Yeah, where all the songs are about Tony, and so the videos are just the two of them staring at each other. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Then Hey Lover, LL Cool J featuring Boys to Men. What a great track.
It's on my list as well.
Down, 311, One Sweet Day, another Dilcox family favorite, and another track featuring Boys to Men. Roll to Me, which was said by, I forget who, but someone else was on to Roll to Me, I think, earlier.
Yes.
Only Happy When It Rains for Garbage, Foolish Games, and You Were Meant for Me, Jewel. Gangster's Paradise, Coolio. He picked Symbolistic White Walls off that the Matthew Good debut there, which I guess we should double back to debuts because I have a bit about the Matthew Good album. But I Wish, Skilo. In the Meantime, Space Hog. He picked Kitty and Peaches from Presidents of the U.S. So he couldn't decide which one, and I'm with him. Hanukkah Song by Sandler.
Yep.
This Is How We Do It, Montel Jordan. I Want to Come Over, Melissa Etheridge. I Can Love You Like That, All for One. I'll Be There for You, Rembrandt. And I have to think he's going cultural significance for that one as well, because I know he's not a big Friends guy. Stand Out and Eye to Eye, Tevin Campbell off the Goofy movie soundtrack, which...
Yes. God, I wish he was here to talk about that because I remember him being so excited.
Yeah, I should have wore my Powerline t-shirt instead of my Against Me t-shirt this morning, but I opened my music dresser drawer and not my movie TV dresser drawer, so that's my fault, folks. I apologize. I'll wear it next week. Walking in Memphis, Cher. I like that so much better than the Mark Cohen one. Crossroads.
Springsteen one for it.
Yeah. Crossroads and First of the Month, Bone Thugs, One of Us, Joan Osborne, Rosalia, Better Than Ezra, Colors of the Wind from the Pocahontas soundtrack, and Give Me One Reason from Tracy Chapman. That is his short list. He didn't star which one was his song of the year.
So it was the whole Green Day album.
Yeah, so it was the whole Green Day album. I'm gonna say it was
Foo Fighters for that matter.
It was either the Foo Fighters or it was Eye to Eye, and that one I could see being it. But debut albums this year, the first Blink 182. I've never been a Blink fan, but I understand those that are. The Jewel, and that one, of course, we ran into last year because there was an EP, I believe, released. Yep. But that's interesting. It didn't do well initially, and it charted, I think it was 2 or 3 years later when she opened for Dylan on a tour. So that's interesting that I forgot she'd opened for Dylan. And then the fact that that's what helped the album. The first Silverchair album was this year. Wilco, I've never been a big Wilco fan, but I know they did the album of covers that had a big breakout. And in Bob Dylan's autobiography, he tells the story about how he was supposed to get those masters and do those covers, but he didn't have a car and he had to walk to Long Island and it was snowing. So he just gave up, and he was happy to see Wilco get success with that album. But yeah, Old Dirty Bastard, his debut solo, Sugar Ray, Montel Jordan, Sleater Kinney, who's not a hugely well-known band, and this album's not a big one for me, but the last couple of years they've had some great releases I've loved. Chemical Brothers, who when you think electronica music, they're one of those groups you think of. Yep. Skilo, I Wish, is just a classic. D'Angelo and Monica both debut. The Bloodhound Gang, I forgot they'd been around for that long. Their careers lasted way longer than they should have, so good for them. The Presidents of the United States of America, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but they continued making music steady for years. Oh, yeah. They had an album just a couple years ago that was fantastic, and that was their last one. Raekwon, so we got another Wu-Tang solo debut there. Benfold's 5, so this was the first Benfold's 5.
Best Imitation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Garbage, Faith Evans, who, I mean, most known for being the wife of Biggie, but just a gorgeous voice on Faith Evans. Rammstein, Deftones, Space Hog, Incubus's debut, Fungus Among Us.
Fungus Among Us.
I know that'll probably come up. Finger Eleven's debut album was this year. I'm not a huge Finger Eleven fan, but I threw them on here just because they were rainbow butt monkeys at the time.
Jesus Christ.
GZA's solo release, Liquid Swords, which might be one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time, or in the case of what I've got, hip hop cassettes. First Enrique, and of course, first Foo Fighters. So a lot of really great debut albums, and some of them that were just pretty flawless. That Presidents of the United States album's just great top to bottom. The Chemical Brothers one's great too. So a lot of just great debuts. I know we've had some years where it was like not their best album, but
well, what's interesting here, Greg, is that this is the first time where you've really given some love to debut albums as opposed to just they existed. You're like, yeah, these are pretty solid.
Yeah, and I mean, even last week where I mentioned debut albums of both Elliott Smith and the Mountain Goats, who are two of my all-time favorites, and they weren't their best albums. And I mean, the Mountain Goats released 2 in 1995, and I think one song made my shortlist off those 2. Right. And that's understandable. It's the evolution of a musician. Like, you find yourself. So when you get a great debut album, it's just good for you. That's phenomenal. And it's not always the artist's fault. I think a lot of time it's probably the label's fault because they're trying to force an artist in a certain direction, and that's not necessarily where they should be.
Right.
It develops more curiosity. Like for me, I love Deftones. I had no idea until now that they had their initial release in '95. So what I want to do is go explore this later on tonight and see what they're all about, what they were doing in '95 opposed to 2002. You know.
Well, one of their tracks actually made my list, so it will be on the playlist.
Love it. I love it.
There wasn't anything that struck me off that album, but I, much like you, Tony, I didn't realize that I think White Pony was the first Deftones album that I had knowledge of, and that's just another flawless album, but it's not.
Yeah.
I guess I must not have liked that album enough to go back and dig, I guess, even though
See, I
I
grew up
genuinely
rocking.
love that album.
Truth
I
comes
grew up
out.
rocking Adrenaline and Around the Fur. Like, they're my favorite Deftones projects. So it was a great year. Greg, excellent list of debuts, my man. I love I love how extensive you do your homework on these, even for our Canadian releases there, like Finger 11.
Yeah, well, and I forgot about the Matthew Good one because that one's an interesting one because it was only released in Canada.
Mhm.
So Beautiful Midnight is an album they released twice.
Yep.
And Beautiful Midnight with the second release, I think it was in 2001 versus the first one to be in 99. Completely different track listing because this album was Last Ghetto Astronaut was their debut. And so I'd missed it in my debuts because it was a Canadian. So thankfully, when I looked at Joe's shortlist earlier, I was like, oh, Symbolistic White Walls was not. And I was like, oh, no, that was. And that's just one of those interesting things about how it works. And growing up in a border state and border towns like Matthew Good we were exposed to, but he didn't hit it big in America. Like most of the following for the Matthew Good band was in Western Canada. So that was a debut I originally missed even with trying to do my research and even knowing it was coming sometime around now. Because there are some like the Mountain Goats aren't listed when you look at a just general list.
Right.
I had to go and look, and we'll have bands later that fall in that same situation where I know about when they started making music. So I'm just looking every year for their discography. But yeah, but Matthew Good. So this one came out, and then Beautiful Midnight was released in 99 and then re-released in 2001. And so Symbolistic White Wall was the big hit off this album. And then on the US version of Beautiful Midnight, it's on there as well. It's a completely different track list from the Canadian release. So it almost serves as the greatest hits record, I think, at that point.
Yeah, 99 is going to get a lot of love here.
Yes.
All right, so Tony, my friend, you are joining us yet again, round 2 here. And you told me you were going to come with some research, my friend.
Some research. Absolutely. So, all right. So is it my turn to introduce the list, or do you want me?
What do you got? What do you got, man? Fire away.
All right, I got the list. I mean, it's gonna be tough to follow what Greg just implemented here, but I'm gonna give you guys what I have here. All right. So I'm gonna kick it off with sitting up in my room with Brandy. I'm gonna hit up with oh man, this is one of my favorite ballads of all time, but Nobody Knows Tony Rich Project.
Yes.
You know, and I did a little research on that. I was curious. So the song itself, it appears was released November 7th, 1995, the album 96. So we can kind of deliberate, you know, does it belong here right now? Should we talk about it next year? But I'm just gonna throw it out there anyways because I love it so much and I want to talk about it briefly. So Nobody Knows Tony Rich, Michael Jackson, You Are Not Alone. Monica, Don't Take It Personal, Just One of Them Days. I show a lot of love to my man Ozzy Osbourne with his Osmosis release. Anytime that you got Lemmy on bass and you got Zach Wild on your lead guitar and you have See You on the other side, you're gonna have a beautiful song that needs to be mentioned. Silverchair. These kids were 17, I think, when they released this album out from Australia. They deserve all the recognition. The Road Tomorrow obviously makes the list. No doubt. Okay, so you guys were talking, I think you were aging yourself, and I didn't want to go there because I think I might be a little bit older, but I'm gonna go, when I was in high school, I had the biggest crush on Gwen. So when Tony was out and they had their phone, I thought that this Tony can step in, you know? So Just a Girl, that's my girl. Joan Osborne, One of Us. Filter, Hey Man, Nice Shot. Richard Patrick, in my opinion, has some of the most diverse pipes, you know, out of a lot of those things that came out of there. And it was
That
really
was-
interesting. Go ahead.
That was off the Short Bus album, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I forgot that album came out in 95. So after Dan
Yeah.
applauded my research, I completely forgot about it.
Yeah.
I have the CD, but I forgot it came out in 95. Damn.
Such a great track too. His pipes on that song. Oh my God.
And that opens the album too. Like, what a perfect way to open an
Mhm.
album.
Absolutely. And, you know, I rally around guys who kind of split off from former bands. I mean, he spent a lot of time with Nine Inch Nails. So it was really good to see what he offered as a solo artist. I know Filter, you know, was a band, but like it was just to see what he had in mind, what direction he was going, and just amazing. That guy, his pipes, he's probably maybe one of the more underrated singers coming out of the 90s. Let's see, Better Than Ezra, In the Blood. Rihanna, everybody's talked about that, but I thought that was a game changer with You Ought to Know. She definitely brought a lot of fight and bite and anger. And I was worried for her boyfriend or ex-husband's life in a few of those songs. I think it was a guy from, what was a TV show? Wasn't she dating, oh man, I forgot his name.
The rumors Dave Coulier, was that ever confirmed though?
I don't think it was, but I want to believe it because
I want to believe it, right? It makes it even more interesting, right?
Yeah.
So I fear for his life anyways, to this day. Brother Kane and Fool Shine On. We got Folk Implosion, Natural One. Everybody already talked about Presidents. Got to throw London Peaches in there. Oasis, I had Champagne Supernova. I'm going to go with U2 with Hold Me Through and Kiss Me Kill Me off of Batman Forever. I thought that was a rockin' tune. I thought U2 came off, strong from their previous 91 release. Let's see, Collective Soul, The World I Know, Smashing Young Man. I love Dangerous Minds. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. This Is the Life from Wendy and Lisa. Beautiful, kind of somber track. Take a listen to it, guys, if you do have the chance. This Is the Life. Goo Goo Dolls, this is one of my more personal songs that it really can come down to being Song of the Year for me. I love Naked off of A Boy Named Goo. That was their first release. Everybody, gravitates towards Name, and it is a beautiful song. But even Resnick, he'll mention sometimes in his live shows that actually Naked was their first solo, and I love that song. PJ Harvey, Down by the Water. Probably one of the more scarier songs I've ever listened to. When somebody starts whispering in the song, it's got my attention. Like, give me my daughter. I'm going to torture myself later on tonight, turn off all the lights and listen to it again and just get freaked out right before bed. That's what's happening. I have just three more. Four Squirrels, The Mighty KC, tribute to Kurt Cobain. Deep track, deep band. I think they only had the one album because unfortunately, right either before the song was released or after, the whole band got into a crash. The lead singer was killed, so they weren't able to continue. It was shortly after that track was released. I'm gonna give a lot of love to Van Halen. Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. Van Halen turned a little bit darker. They were heavily influenced by the grunge movement, and this was contradictory to what Sammy Hagar was used to historically with Van Halen. Much lighter, much more positive. Let's do this. Let's take on the world. Now it's Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. It's a very gritty and grindy song. And my song of the year is none other than Mad Season, River of Deceit. Love it, love it, love it. Anything that Lane Staley touches, I tend to gravitate towards. I was shocked because I didn't know this song existed when I was, coming up with Pipes in '95. I didn't know. I wasn't exposed to it, but later on when I was active duty around 2002, I heard it on the radio, and I had to track some of the lyrics. I'm like, okay, down, oh down, looking for Alice in Chains, but it led me to Mad Season. Like, who the heck is Mad Season? And he teamed up with Mike McCready out of Pearl Jam. Fascinating song, fascinating, just mood sense with it. So if anybody out there doesn't know or is not privy to Mad Season, I encourage you guys to look up River of Deceit. Mad Season, Lane Staley lays it all out in the line. Unfortunately, at that time, he was extremely consumed with heroin use. That was evident in a lot of these songs in his band with Mad Season. He only went on to go on with Alice in Chains and I think released 2 more songs with those guys before they had to call it quits. And then he later on, unfortunately, passed in 2002. So Mad Season, River of Deceit, that's my song of the year.
Awesome stuff, man. That's a very wide-ranging list.
Decades, but I trimmed that down for you guys.
Oh, I love that. What a list, man. That's great track, great album there too. I gave it a re-listen recently. You and I were talking about it. I gave it a re-listen and it definitely took me back. It's great stuff.
Absolutely.
So I got one more in the books. Now we get to our guy Greg here, and I have a feeling we have a curveball coming. I have a feeling.
It might be a curveball only because it got love, but it didn't get enough love from people talking because of I think the significance of the song. But we'll get there in a second. Jewel, we talked about it last week. As children, Jewel was it for us, even into our teen years. Joe and I singing Foolish Games while one of us was doing the dishes, the other would hang out in the kitchen on their non-dish night and sing Jewel. But I mean, Who Will Save Your Soul, Foolish Games, You Were Meant for Me. I think all three of those tracks are perfect. Shimmy Shimmy Ya, ODB. I think
Yes.
his first solo hit, and rightfully so. This is How We Do It, Montel Jordan. What a great track. Also, the British duo Aluna George, and it's a singer songwriter with a DJ. They do a great cover of that on their debut album that just changes the song perfectly for them. It just perfect. But More Human Than Human, White Zombie. And I've always wondered what it is about White Zombie and Rob Zombie. I don't know how often you guys frequent strip clubs, but especially in Canada, someone is for sure dancing to a Rob Zombie song, either in the White Zombie form or Rob Zombie. For some reason, Rob Zombie makes stripper rock music, and I don't know why that is, but it's just true.
I guess I've never thought of that, but I'll never be able to unthink it too.
And I don't frequent often, but growing up in the border and with Montreal, like occasionally someone's like, oh, it's Wednesday afternoon, let's blow off class and go up to Montreal. And you do, and you see a girl with a giant cross tattooed on her back dancing to Matthew Good, and that only can happen in Canada. But yeah, White Zombie, More Human Than Human. That is probably my favorite, like, from Zombie as a whole, is that track there. Baby Did a Bad Thing. I know you love Chris Isaak dance, so that's probably on your list too. Santa Monica, Everclear. I love Art's voice, and
Yeah.
I love him as a storyteller too, musically. Hand in My Pocket, Ironic, You Ought to Know, with Atlantis. That album was so good.
It's just a banger.
Yeah. My favorite, the All for One album there, my favorite song was I'm Sorry. And in 6th grade, a classmate asked me to go to the formal, and I thought she was making fun of me, and it was like a low stakes carry situation. So I told her I wasn't going, and then I went, and she saw me and she cried. So I made a mixed cassette that was all Bone Thugs and Harmony, but started with I'm Sorry All for One. I never gave it to her, but as adults, I ran into her and we had a conversation, and I apologized to her.
Jesus, Greg.
Yeah. Yeah. That young Gregory just assumed everyone was making fun of him, probably because he was an asshole and always making fun of everyone else. So, but yeah, I'm Sorry. It's a beautiful track too. Beyond that, It's Oh So Quiet by Bjork is my favorite Bjork track, and the intensity on that track is just wacky that you would expect. Down and All Mixed Up by 311. The Elliott Smith off this second album, I think Needle in a Haystack opens it, and it's just a beautiful.
You took my Elliott Smith song.
Fine. Clementine by Elliott Smith, which does reference Oh My Darling Clementine, which comes up in a later Elliott Smith album too. So yep. Elliott Smith could not be contained no matter what you thought of him. R.I.P. Yeah, I have Ice Cream on here as well. I know that was mentioned earlier. But I think it was earlier it was credited as Woo, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's all.
Did we lose him?
We may have
album, but not my favorite.
You froze on us, Greg. What was that?
So Ice Cream was mentioned earlier. I think it was credited as a Wu-Tang track, and I mean it is. It's RZA production, and even though it's on the Raekwon solo, Method Man, Ghostface, and Capadonna are all on it. So yes, it's a Wu-Tang track. Philosophy, Benfold's 5, my favorite track off that debut album. Not my favorite Benfold's song. We'll get to that one day soon. Only Happy When It Rains and Stupid Girl by Garbage. Counting Blue Cars, Dishwalla, Wonderwall, and Champagne Supernova. Mariah had a year. Fantasy, One Sweet Day, Always Be My Baby. Green Day, Brain Stew, and Walking Contradiction. I just love the music video for Walking Contradiction. One of my favorite music videos of all time. I listed all of Tragic Kingdom just to mess with Joe, but I think Sunday Morning might be my favorite track off that, and I don't think it gets enough love for how beautiful that track is. Uh, Zero, Bullet with Butterfly Wings, Tonight, 1979, Smashing Pumpkins. That album was just so great. All those videos were great too. Coolio had a great year too with 1, 2, 3, 4, Something New, and Gangster's Paradise. Two very different tracks as well, but like both great. Give Me One Reason, Tracy Chapman. And I mean, she released this and Fast Car started getting radio and video play again because they're just such both tracks. LL had a phenomenal album that year. Hey Lover, which was mentioned, Doing It, which for a young, just about to hit puberty Gregory, that was quite the track and video combination. But I mean, I Shot You and then the I Shot You remix. I Shot You with Keith Murray, but then the remix featuring a whole posse track. Like,
Yeah,
it's just interesting since that was the East Coast West Coast beef, and for LL to kind of step in it as an old elder statesman of East Coast rap, but also kind of walked away from it harmless.
yep.
Because I mean, he'd had all his battles. I think he still has one coming up in a few years, but he'd been there, done that, so he could just do what he want. Like I said earlier, that Shania album, Any Man of Mine, Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under, both just perfect tracks. Breakfast at Tiffany's, Deep Blue Something.
Oh yeah.
Then the Mountain Goats, I Know You've Come to Take My Toys Away. It's just a brilliant, brilliant track from them. And then Lonesome Surprise is just a fun recording of that track, more so than a song. But those would be my two Mountain Goats. And for Song of the Year, it's got to be Gangster's Paradise. I mean, the Dangerous Minds soundtrack. Tony mentioned a deep cut off that, but the Dangerous Minds soundtrack, front to top, like just a brilliant soundtrack. A lot of diverse hip hop in that soundtrack. It just, I mean, the movie, the soundtrack, just the video for this with Michelle Pfeiffer and Coolio, it just everything about this. There's a reason it was Grammy nominated. It's a reason Coolio got so upset about the Weird Al parody, and not Weird Al's fault. Like, he got permission from the label. He had no idea about Coolio's feelings about it, but that was a deeply personal song for Coolio.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget how good Coolio could be when he was engaged in rapping, and that's just a perfect example of it.
He actually may have my Song of the Year in 97, to be honest.
So Coolio gets his love here anyway.
Hell yeah. That's I was wondering if you're gonna go there, and then I was like, nah, he's gonna give us a different Coolio track just because.
No, there was no other Coolio track to go. I don't even know if I could justify another song. And if I were to, it would probably be 1979, because that was another like important music video. I mean, the band just looked so cool in that video. They looked like assholes, but they looked so cool. And that's really what I think of Smashing Pumpkins. So.
Nice. No, hell of a pick, man. I'm going to do as I usually do, and I crossed off everything that's been talked about extensively thus far. So what I'm left with is Airplane by Red Hot Chili Peppers, Angry Johnny by Poe, which is just a very chilling song. Annie by Elastica, Back for Good by Take That. I still rock that track. I used to listen to it when I was doing community service at Goodwill, and it's just stuck with me. Be My Lover by LaBouche, Beautiful Life, Ace of Base, Best Imitation of Myself, Benfold, Boombastic by Shaggy, which was said, Bored by the Deftones makes my list, and it was almost in my top 5 of the year. It's my favorite Deftones track. I absolutely love that song, and I don't even know how many speakers I blew out blasting that between my boombox, my car. It's a timeless track for me. Brown Sugar by D. What's that?
Sorry, Dan. His voice is just so memorizing, brother. You can just track and get lost in it, you know. So
Che is a hell of a vocalist. Brown Sugar by D'Angelo. Burn One Down, Ben Harper. It's not necessarily a song I really like, but it's one that kind of put in motion the Ben Harper fans. Can't Get You Off My Mind, Lenny Kravitz. Such a great song. Carnival, Natalie Merchant. Dear Mama, Tupac. Just absolutely love this track. Put it out every Mother's Day. December by Collective Soul. I'm noticing them giving Collective Soul a lot of love over the years. I just didn't realize they were as active as they were. Which I was talking to my coworker Terry about that today because her favorite band is Collective Soul. She's seen them 21 times in concert, which it's got to be a record for somebody with Collective Soul.
Yeah.
But I did see them once with Our Lady Peace, and their frontman is amazing. For the Oasis tracks, I had Don't Look Back in Anger and Roll With It. I Could Fall in Love by Selena. God, that song is just so captivating. Dust on the Bottle, David Lee Murphy. It's like one of the country songs outside of Shania to really survive that year. Exhale, Shoop Shoop by Whitney Houston. Such a great track. Fake Plastic Trees, one of the only Radiohead songs that I actually like. It's something very haunting yet comforting about that song. I'm really not a big Radiohead fan, but that song is amazing. Fantasy Mariah was already said. Flood by Jars of Clay, like Christian rock. I think DC Talk and Jars of Clay like took the stage here. Flood's a really good song. Freak Like Me by Adina Howard. I was much too young to be vibing to the song as much as I was, but I've remembered it my whole life. Good by Better Than Ezra. We don't need to talk about Alanis anymore. She's just amazing. Have You Ever Really Loved a Woman? Bryan Adams. Here Comes the Hot Stepper. Aini Kamosi. That track is timeless for me. I know he's a one-hit wonder, but Jesus, yeah, I love it. Here in Your Bedroom, Goldfinger. I believe Something About Mary soundtrack, right? I love Goldfinger, and that song is still a banger. I'll Never Break Your Heart, Backstreet Boys. I'll Stick Around, Foo Fighters. Jar by Green Day from the Angus soundtrack, perhaps my favorite Green Day song. And it wasn't on their other albums. It was actually just on the Angus soundtrack. Long Way Down, Goo Goo Dolls. Tony mentioned Name already. Along with Naked there. Those two tracks are great off of there. MCs Act Like They Don't Know, KRS-One. He was spitting some heat still. Misery from Soul Asylum. Perry Mason from Ozzy Osbourne. That's my favorite song off that album. Secret Garden, Bruce Springsteen. I believe, was that off Jerry Maguire? Was that on the Jerry Maguire soundtrack? Yes, it was, because they did the thing where the little Jonathan Lipnicki like talks through it or whatever, and then you got some tears and whatnot. So my second favorite band happened to release their debut, Fungus Among Us, during this year, which Greg touched on. So I got Shaft, You'll Be a Hot Dancer, and Sink Beneath the Line as my tracks off that album. It's actually a mess of an album, and it's really not good. And had that been my introduction to them, I would not have liked Incubus. But it shows just where they were creatively. Psychedelics and DJ turntables. So they've grown a lot. Sweet Dreams covered by Marilyn Manson. Till I Hear It From You from the Gin Blossoms. You've Got a Friend in Me from Randy Newman. We can't leave out the Toy Story love. And
Greatest,
then
one of the greatest movies ever.
Do you know
One of the
that
greatest.
song is only in there because Disney wouldn't make Toy Story unless there was a musical number, because everything was musicals and they didn't think a children's movie could work. So that's why that song is so prominently in the soundtrack, because that was the compromise, something that the kids would love. So
I actually didn't know that, but I like it even better because they gave Randy Newman the love.
yeah.
And then rounding out my short list, which has proved to be pretty long, is Tomorrow by Silverchair. Now we get into my top, and this is where I had to really narrow it down. 2, 4, 6, 8. My top 10. I had First of the Month, Bone Thugs. Time Bomb by Rancid. They really brought punk to the forefront again. In the Meantime, Space Hog. The World I Know, Collective Soul. Tonight, Smashing Pumpkins. One Sweet Day with Boys to Men by Mariah Carey. I Don't Believe by Stabbing Westward. I got 5 on It by Lunas, You Ought to Know Alanis, and Dreaming of You, Selena. And to be completely honest, I didn't know what I was going to pick until 5 minutes before we went on. And thinking of it culturally, what might have been just how prevalent with all these other tracks out this one song was, I have to go with Dreaming of You by Selena. This song was everywhere without people realizing that it was everywhere at the time. And I was a huge just music junkie, making mixtapes constantly off the radio and everything else. And this song, I could have it on a single station like every 10 minutes. I don't think people remember or realize just how prevalent Selena was on the airwaves. But for her to be the crossover star that she was, for this track to have gone as far as it did. She had, I think, 3 hits on at one point, and she even had a Spanish single chart in the US. So while these other songs are great and very memorable for people, I guarantee if somebody sits down and listens to the song, they'll be like, I remember that. If they're around then. And if not, they'll be like, wow, it's a beautiful song. Her Japanese release of that album also had a beautiful cover of Sukiyaki, which is just such a great song. But I gotta go Dreaming of You. I surprised myself with it. I went in thinking I was going to give it to Alanis, to be quite honest. And the more I sat down and listened to all these songs and thought about it, that just took me to a place where I was comfortable giving the nod to Selena.
So I'm going to throw a wrinkle on my short list. I wrote pick a Bone Thug song that wasn't said. And I definitely wanted to hear your list, Dan, in case you picked like something off the wall from that. But I was debating between Mo Murda and Buddha Lovers, which are both like deep on that album.
Mhm.
And I think both really show off the harmony part of Bone Thugs and Harmony, which was something Eazy-E insisted they add because they were just Bone Thugs, and then Eazy-E said and Harmony, and it was a perfect because that's really what they are. But Mo Murder, the chorus for that is just amazing. Buddha Lovers, just the entire track. The way those guys use their rapping to create melodies is phenomenal, and I think those two tracks really highlight that. So, but I wanted to see if anyone else threw them love and went deep into the Bone Thugs, because I knew we were going to talk about Bone Thugs because Crossroads was interstellar as a hit. So.
Yeah. Well,
But
what's interesting is
two-
putting that album on now, it holds up. You know, a lot of the old hip hop albums, they really don't withstand time either because of subject matter, flow. Some of it starts to sound corny, but like, I mean, you mentioned the LL album. That album holds up. The Bone Thugs album holds up. The production was great on it, but it relied more on the artist and the gimmicks than the beef and all that stuff. And damn, that was just such a great album.
Yeah, well, I think that's why, I mean, we had a bunch of Wu-Tang debuts in here, but I think that's why all the Wu-Tang like holds up is, yes, they're kind of gimmicky with the Killer Bees and the Kung Fu, but those guys can all rap individually, which is why they've all had great solo careers. And RZA's just a hell of a producer. But I mean, Liquid Swords coming out this year is still considered by so many as the greatest hip hop album ever released. And
Yeah.
You could say that of the Raekwon album that came out this year as well. So 95 was a really good year for hip hop. 96 is a really good year for hip hop. So we're in the thick of like some classic hip hop, and you're right, especially early 90s, late 80s. Some of that stuff doesn't hold up. And I think some of the late 90s, early 2000 stuff doesn't hold up either. Especially Hey Lover out this year. We're going to get to like 2002 when Irv Gotti's going to claim to create the hip hop R&B duet like ballad. And I'm like, how are you a hip hop producer and you don't know about hip hop ballads that have been around as long as hip hop? So it's crazy how, I mean, with any genre, but just
absolute fire.
Yeah.
We made it through another year, gentlemen.
Another
We did.
wonderful year, and it's sad because these are just it features so many beautiful songs. I mean, you don't get better between these years that we're covering, man. In my opinion, late '80s to the early 2000s. You guys are saying it leaves a lasting impression. Or maybe we were just young enough that we just appreciated it as we were coming out of the gates. You know,
It's
timeless songs.
In 95, you're able to touch on every genre and say that there was some great music to come from it, or memorable tracks from everyone that if you say it, regardless of what kind of music somebody listens to, they'll nod and be like, oh yeah, I remember that song. Yeah. And, great song, because as you get older, you start to appreciate more music as opposed to shunning it because it doesn't fit into what you listen to or a certain, the cool kids club or, depending on your age and all that stuff. So I genuinely look forward to listening to this playlist when we make it because it's going to be a banger, and we'll be adding to that. So anybody listening, we will have the soundtrack to you by the end of the week.
And it's so cool that all these guys, I mean, who helped out on the website there with their selections of songs, it's going to be on there as well. So it's awesome for them to contribute and see themselves in the playlist. And
then they could definitely listen to ours and skip, or listen to theirs and skip ours. We're gonna have some Skilo next to Stabbing Westward. It's going to be a great playlist.
Well, and of course, we will always share the playlist as we share these videos, but we are working on retroactively going back to create the playlist for previous videos, and they are all going to be titled Battle of the Ballads and then the year. So easy to search for. Joe made 93 and 94. I made 95, but we made them public so anyone can search for it. We aren't hiding our Spotify playlist while at the same time talking on YouTube about music. you guys get a feel for what our musical tastes are anyway. So,
and while you're on Spotify, make sure to check out the No Coast Defenders podcast hosted by our one and only Greg here, featuring Tim and myself. And while we're talking about this, Greg, what other plugs you got this week, my friend?
Well, I just want to shout out Tony. When I wrote my newsletter Friday, I start it usually the day before, and the only thing I knew was going to be included in the newsletter for sure was my awesome sauce of the week was Tony coming on last week with us. It was just so nice to have him on here. So nice to have him a second. Like, it just, thank you, Tony. That's just so awesome. But as Dan said, No Coast Defenders on Spotify. It might not be on Spotify yet. It's having trouble loading, but it is up on YouTube now that my two co-hosts are less self-conscious. This one, Tim came in looking spiffy for this one. And then Thursday, I will be posting the first of my new series, My Friends Like Cool Shit. This first one is My Friends Like Cool Stuff. My buddy Buck, who was on No Coast Defenders with us, we talked live music versus streaming. So really relevant to this. I'm wearing the Against Me shirt today simply because we talked about mutually one of the favorite shows we've ever seen was Against Me on New Year's Eve at an old converted church that was turned into a venue, and just what a great day that was and a great show. Just a great conversation with Buck. Like, you can tell how much he just loves music and live music during that. And he's just a great guy. I've known him now many years. We're talking decades. So it was nice to be able to virtually talk to him about that. And going forward, I've got a friend coming on to talk about why Mad Max Fury Road is the greatest movie of all time. Dan's going to come on and talk Taco Bell. So I've even got one for a fall because I have a friend who loves a series and he says it's the perfect fall series. So he's going to come on in the fall to talk about that. So it just, I want to spread the love and joy and talking about what we love. So that's the goal of this series. I mean, goal of this one we're doing right now too, that you guys are currently watching. So
Greg, I think you hit it, man. I think you hit it with spreading love, right? I think that's what we really need a lot of in this world, especially with COVID and everything else. It's just been, taking us by storm the last 14 months. So you couldn't have put more emphasis on an important and critical point, brother. It is about spreading love for sure. And you guys are getting a wonderful response back from your viewers.
While we're talking about spreading love, Tony, you have a very special event coming up. You have something to plug, and you have a wonderful video that just hit the internet.
Oh man,
it's being shared widely.
Thank you, brother. No, and thank you for caring enough to share it and just being involved. And thank your daughter again. Her inspiration in her couple of seconds of rock depression, it just makes you want to jump out of bed each day and just get after it. So this event, it's coming along. It's oddly enough, it's causing me like a little anxiety because I'm kind of a private person, and exposing myself out there in the world, leaving myself really vulnerable is something I typically don't do. But I'm just at a point in life where I want to get out there now. I want to make a difference, and I think it's starting to occur, and we're getting a lot of support. There's several bands now that want to play. I just wrote some things down there. There's individuals who want to perform some art therapy, potentially yoga. Pelicans was wonderful and very receptive of wanting to host. So it's starting to become a big deal. And I am now leaning on a lot of support to help me, make this a reality. So like I said, it's just kind of conflicting because it's putting me in a spotlight where I typically kind of avoid that spotlight. So I'm trying my best to make it about everybody that's struggling as well. And that's the point of emphasis, and bringing the community together, bringing love. So it's titled Rock Depression. You can go to the website that's still kind of underway and implementing some new sponsors and whatnot, but it's www.rockdepression.org. And the event is going to be July 24th. It's going to consist of a 5K run, walk, however you can muster that. And there's going to be vendors, there's going to be bands, maybe we moonlight lanterns later on. I'm still developing a lot of ideas for the community to come together and develop some wonderful rapport. That's what it's about. But thanks, Dan. Thanks again, brother. Thank you, Greg, for having me on these couple of weeks, guys. Just amazing. It just gives me a lot of inspiration. So really, guys, thank you. I'm that too for forever. So,
No,
Yeah,
thank you
totally.
for what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing in the community and for bringing light to this very serious topic that needs a lot of reframing. So
absolutely.
your efforts are amazing.
Uh,
Thank you.
Real quick, Tony, any words of encouragement you might have for someone who's thinking about doing a similar event in their community?
Any words of encouragement as far as like organizing an event, Greg, or just trying to muster up strength to get out of their house?
Let's go with the event. I mean,
So where I started was, I started just speaking to my inner circles and just saying, hey, I have this idea. What do you think about this? And then, it kind of just branches out and snowballs out. And that's what it did for me. I started with Dan, I started with a brother of mine, a good friend, and other friends, some colleagues, and it just kind of spirals out from there. So if they have a good concept, start there. First, maybe, start with yourself. What do you want? What do you want your public to see? What do you want? How do you want to impact them? So develop a theme and, work it with your inner networks, and then, spread out from there. And don't take on too much at once, and be very precise about little steps that you want to achieve before taking everything on, because I'm actually going through that right now, to where everything's a bit scattered, and I'm, I should be a little bit more organized than I am, but it will all work out. So inner networks and slowly fan out. That would be my recommendation.
I like to
awesome.
call it
And
controlled chaos.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't ever have any control in my chaos, but you said it's taking you out of your comfort zone. Do you think it's
Yes.
worth going out of your comfort zone for this event, though?
No, I do, Greg, only because it's consumed the better portion of a decade. And, that was exposed to me through some very wonderful and uplifting therapy sessions. My therapist basically said, Tony, you've lost touch with yourself for so long, and you have so much to offer. And it really rang. It really rang. And like I said, I'm not an individual that likes to expose myself to a lot of limelight. I actually I'm a bit more reserved and introverted. So this is well out of my comfort zone. And it's honestly, it's a new adventure that I've never, ever dared to step foot in, but I'm excited. I'm excited. I can't wait to see the community rally. And I really can't wait to just impact somebody that is trying to find their courage to walk out their room. And I've been in that situation, and I resonate with that. And I just can't wait to meet people like that and impact them and challenge them to, live a very fruitful and purposeful life.
Much love, my friend. I'm going to have you on my Sunday feature the week before to give it one last push.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And
That's beautiful.
I'm here along the way. Obviously, we'll have some more correspondence in the area here.
Absolutely. And I'm going to chime in on Facebook, and I'm going to give you guys not a very detailed list, but some songs for sure each year. I'm coming at you guys. I'll be here coming.
Well, we appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
We made it another year. So I'm looking forward to 1996 and getting people's feedback on that, because, Jesus, it just gets tougher as we go. We may have to start splitting each year into 2 sessions at this point. But Greg, Tony, thank you again. Much love. I look forward to doing it next week. And Tony, keep doing your good work in the community, man. It's stellar. It's excellent. It's needed.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dan. And go to bed, Zoe.
Until we meet again, gentlemen.